This bitter herb, what fruit it bears.
My fellow citizens of the world.
That's the trailer of Apple TV's sci-fi extravaganza Invasion. Filmmaker Tom Burston should be in Vancouver right now working on season 3 of the production.
Unrelated incidents.
That no one should.
Instead, he's at home in Hawke's Bay writing a book and a screenplay about the extraordinary lives of his parents. Like thousands, well, tens of thousands of film and TV workers around the world, Tom is caught up in the crippling Hollywood writers' strike, now dragging into a third month with no sign of a resolution.
They are on strike for the first time in 15 years, saying they're not being paid fairly for their work.
The writers say streaming's lack of a regularly seasonal calendar has hurt their pay, and AI has transformed the media landscape.
You know, scripted comedies, sitcoms, dramas, all of that right now is a no-go until this is resolved.
I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Today on The Detail, it's about more than our favourite TV shows on hold or cancelled. It is about the fight for survival in an industry that is changing so quickly. And even the superstars are having a say.
It has to be worked out, and it has to be worked out in an ecumenical way in which we understand that, guys, we're all in this together. There is a win-win circumstance here that can only come about when everybody is paid their fair share.
So back to Tom Burston now. He's not exactly a household name, but many of the films and TV shows he's worked on are Cowboy Bebop, Snowpiercer, and the award-winning Kiwi doco This Way of Life. On his latest, Invasion, he's the director of photography.
I'm responsible to design a visual look for the film in concert with the lead director and the executive producer, who's also one of the writers. Once that look is designed, then I have to hire a crew and pick the appropriate equipment. So I'm responsible for the camera, lighting, and the means of moving the camera around, which is very sophisticated these days.
So you were working away on the production. The writers went on strike, and does that mean everybody just stops work? They can't carry on?
Unless a project has been started and is underway, in other words, is in photography, then everything must come to a standstill.
Because you're still reliant on the writers to continue the work? Yeah.
The writers are always doing rewrites, and they're on set, and they're actively involved with the production. And that's where part of the reason for the strike is that the producers or the executives, they're all lawyers and accountants now. They used to be people who knew about the process of making film and television, but now they're people who know about the process of making a deal. So as everybody in this, these days, they're trying to cost cut, and they see an opportunity to reduce the responsibilities of the writers.
Okay, these people right here, these are our writers. These are our writers, and I'll stick myself in there because I'm WGA too.
Stephen Colbert's Late Show is off air because of the strike.
And they're so important to our show. They write the monologue, the meanwhile, the cold open, and without these people, this show would be called The Late Show with a guy rambling about the Lord of the Rings and boats for an hour.
On a drama series like Invasion that Tom's working on, they also play a big role.
What happens is writers, especially on a big TV series, on any TV series, but especially on a big one, they work together. They have a writer's room where a whole bunch of people congregate and work through the stories. And then the head writer delegates either episodes or characters or some aspect of that screenplay or those screenplays to each individual, and they get to work, and then they compare notes, and then they work it out together. So it's a very collaborative process. And it's also expensive because a writer's room can have 10 or 12 people there. And among those people are junior writers and seasoned writers. So the junior guys get their experience by working next to the seasoned ones. And that's their workshop, that's their education. And when a writer has completed their screenplay, then they're invited to go to set and be there during production. So they get to watch how their words are being interpreted. It's really helpful for the writer to mature their process. And now they want to get rid of that.
They want to get rid of what the team of writers.
They want to reduce the team of writers. They want to create something called a mini room, a mini writer's room. They don't want to pay for the writers to visit set and hang around. And worst thing is they want to introduce artificial intelligence into the writing process. And that is scary for everybody.
Why is that scary for everybody?
Have you used AI at all?
No, I've done interviews about it, but I'm sort of too scared to go there, to be honest.
I was too. I tried it, and I found it actually frighteningly useful.
Mm-hmm.
There was an example of a producer who had an idea for some show, and the producer said to ChatGPT, he said, write me a script about a doctor who murders their patient and then runs away to South America and blah, blah, blah. And 30 seconds later, there was a 60-page screenplay, which was terrible, but that doesn't matter. The density was, the 60-page document was now in existence. The producer gives that document to a writer and says, do a polish on this, please. So the writer basically rewrites the whole thing until it makes sense, until it becomes compelling, but they're only paid at a polish rate, not at an original screenplay rate. So there's a reduced income, and as well, they are not permitted any part of the royalties that come from that screenplay. So that's a huge savings for the production. And a very sketchy original document, the labor is still on the writer's shoulders, but they're being very, poorly treated and poorly remunerated.
Tom will tell us more about what he calls the infiltration of AI into his work. But let's look now at why all this matters here in New Zealand.
Jason Momoa was welcomed yesterday by kapa haka champions and a long line of admirers.
This haka pōhiri for the Hollywood star fitting, given he's here to shoot an Apple TV series called Chief of War.
Well, Jason Momoa is just wrapping up the Chief of War series here, and he'll be missed on and off location. He's been posting photos and videos of events like Te Matatini Kapa Haka Festival on Instagram, where he has millions of followers. And here he is raving about Aotearoa.
You know what I mean? Use it. I love it.
Because you love it here. Why do you love New Zealand so much?
It's the first place in my life that I've ever landed, and I just felt like a deep connection to. There's countless things, but it's the most diverse ecosystem in the world. Just the pride that I have for my own people, the Kanaka Māori, and our cousins, the Māori. I love the fact that the white culture embraces it so much, knows the language, knows the culture, which just doesn't happen anywhere else.
Someone like Jason Momoa singing the praises of New Zealand must be huge.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
That does not hurt.
Philippa Mossman is head of international attraction at the New Zealand Film Commission. Her job is to secure work from overseas. It's worth up to $900 million a year.
Typically, these international productions use 90% of New Zealand cast and crew. They bring in very few people. It's spent on leasing New Zealand-owned film studio facilities, paying location fees, hiring cameras and lighting and all the other equipment and production users in large amounts, and then extends to putting people up in hotels and accommodation in the cities and regional areas, and feeding and watering them, of course, leasing vehicles, manufacturing sets and props and costumes, all of those things. That's what the money's spent on. But we also experience the worth, if you like, in lots of other ways, like tourism activity that actors get into while they're here and share with their squillions. Participation in community events. A recent example of this with an international production is the high-profile cast of Chief of War. So that Chief of War series is set in the period of the historic unification of the Hawaii Islands. So lots of Indigenous connections in particular to reinforce and make there. And I think the other thing to touch on in terms of worth is the business and creative introductions which naturally occur when you have large international productions in town. They really do grow New Zealand's connection to the world while spending a lot of money in the local economies in a relatively short amount of time.
That particular one, that's the much talked about Jason Momoa there, isn't it? So that would be a Hollywood production?
Yes, that is Fifth Season is the company behind that. It is a Hollywood production.
And so it's not affected by the writers' strike because I understand it's almost finished.
That is the reason why it is not affected by the writers' strike, but any other production that is not written is.
So how many projects that were going to be made here or have any kind of connection with New Zealand have either been postponed or cancelled because of the writers' strike?
None has been cancelled, and a very great many have been either not been able to yet green light, and we still hope in many cases that they will. Certainly the productions are using this time that they have as best they can. So productions are still, in terms of the work that they're doing here or with us rather than being here, they're still working on their budgets and doing their location scouting, figuring out the key, creative personnel they'll work with, connecting with New Zealand companies. But essentially, without a script, there is no show, and so the productions can't be greenlit until the writers' strike is resolved.
And when you say many are affected, many that were going to be made here or bringing overseas people here,
in relation,
how many?
Well, as I said, none has cancelled. It's more shows that are or productions that are quite well advanced in their consideration of New Zealand and are getting to the point of concluding that New Zealand is the place for them, but they're not able to press go. And in terms of quantities, there'd be a minimum of 3 substantial series and the same number or more of feature films that are just sort of in stasis, really.
That's a lot for New Zealand, isn't it? I mean, how much these productions are worth a lot of money, like as you were saying. Each of these productions, what are they worth? Millions?
Yeah, it's definitely big business with a lot of value for New Zealand that's on pause.
How worrying is it? Because my understanding is there's no sign of a resolution yet. It's been dragging on now into close to its 3rd month.
It will be a really great day when we are starting to get signals that they're close to resolution. So, it is a worry. However, what we're hearing in our conversations with the studios and the production companies, the streamers and the people in Hollywood is, that people are optimistic that things will get sorted out reasonably soon, and we are optimistic about a reasonably busy last part of the year.
So what are they telling you, Philippa, the companies and the people that you deal with, what are they actually saying to you?
They're continuing to work with us on the things that they need to figure out as they approach bringing a production to New Zealand. So that sort of work is continuing, and what they're actually saying to us is that they cannot proceed until the writers' strike is resolved.
But It must be quite difficult for a lot of New Zealanders whose work, who are relying on these projects happening on time. I mean, what do they do? What are you hearing?
It's not uncommon for projects to change their dates or shift schedules for one reason or another, and freelance independent crew are certainly, used to having to contend with that. However, in the normal course of production planning, that's something they're familiar with. But this is a different story, and actually your note about Tom in Vancouver points to the fact that this is not a New Zealand only issue. This is what film sectors all over the world are experiencing at the moment. There is no country that needs writers out of America that is in this situation. So, the filmmakers here are turning their attention to local projects with the domestic productions that are going on and, turning their hand to other things.
If you think this is a chance for New Zealand screenwriters to step in and offer their services, well, it's not that straightforward. The local Writers Guild supports the strikers and urges members not to work on projects that are subject to strike action.
It's not the easy fix.
It's not an opportunity for New Zealand, put it that way.
No, not that kind of opportunity. Look, the opportunity here is for us to do what we do in terms of staying close with these companies, gaining as much traction as we can on their existing productions, and, so that just keeping the momentum up, maintaining the relationships, keeping New Zealand top of mind, so that when this is passed, we're in a really good place then to make the most of the opportunity.
The other thing that's going on at the moment in the industry internationally, Philippa, is that these streamers like Netflix, Apple, whatnot, they are making pretty big cuts at the moment to their schedules because their finances aren't looking so good. How does that affect the conversations that you have?
There's a very keen focus on the cost of production. And so, that comes up in the conversations all the time. It means that fewer productions are expected to be made globally, over the next 5 years. A lot of scrutiny on cost and the expectation that the streamers will still spend significant amounts of money on productions, but they may well commission, if you like, fewer than what they have in the past.
So what, has New Zealand kind of reached its peak in terms of what it can make from overseas productions, do you think?
No, I don't think that at all. New Zealand is still very attractive to international productions and we have a great deal to offer. It's just that the conversations for the executives we're dealing with are becoming sharper in a new way, and we are having to help them in making people understand that it makes sense to come to New Zealand.
You're having to help them understand. What does that mean?
What does that mean? What I mean is that the executives are in a situation where they have many different places in the world that they could consider taking their production. And what we like to make sure of is that we're in that consideration set as many times as possible. There are over 100 places in the world, for example, that offer incentives schemes and incentives programs, which is a big part of what draws this business. And so it's really providing them with all the information and all the tools they need to demonstrate that New Zealand is the place for them to come. And that's a combination of the incentives are competitive, the creative match for their project is something that can be communicated. We have the personnel here with incredible international credits already that make perfect sense to them. All of those factors, that those are really well understood, and we assist them in communicating that to the people they need to.
So back to those picketing writers. They want better pay and conditions, but a big worry is producers using low-cost artificial intelligence. Here's Tom Burston talking about how it is creeping into his work.
We're already doing it. We're already mapping faces. You stand in a room, in a tight costume that shows your body shape. And I don't know how many 100 cameras all around that room photograph you in various positions with various expressions. That data is then interpreted by an AI-driven visual effects application to create a virtual person.
Wow.
And at the same time, their voice is recorded, and they're going to have to license your, I don't know what to call it, your persona or your virtual person, but then they can get that thing to act. So we would film a scene without actor, and then that actor would be placed into that scene. And it's terrible. Right now, it's very clumsy. It's too perfect. But very soon, they'll be able to take the edge off of that.
And that's been happening for a long time, hasn't it, Tom? So what is different about what they're calling AI now, today?
It's becoming more, they're not calling that AI, but it is. It's just slowly infiltrating. Though it's just become much more cost effective, much quicker to accomplish, and much more sophisticated. The last thing we did on this show that I'm waiting on now was a figure standing over there, another one, and then on another day another figure standing over here, and then a bit of set, and now they've combined it all to make a scene. I had no idea what I was filming. I just knew that there was going to be sort of a window here and light was going to come from there, and I had to kind of make something up according to those parameters.
So does that make your work in some ways a lot more challenging if you don't really know what you're filming?
No, sadly, it makes it much more boring.
Oh.
Our physical challenges are reduced. You don't have to go to Tibet to film, a Tibetan temple, at 14,000 feet. Just film some guy trudging through pretend snow, and lo and behold, there's the temple. And our mistakes are easily corrected to the point where less care has to be given in the production stage of things and during the photography. And that might be the hardest thing, because I grew up working with film, which was relatively unforgiving. And now we can fix mistakes later. And now we can take shortcuts that normally we would have spent an extra 20 minutes or half an hour or worse correcting so that we could photograph it properly. Now those things we can avoid doing because we can fix it later.
And that's why we should care about this writers' strike here in New Zealand, because I think that, we feel pretty removed from it, apart from the fact that maybe our favourite TV programs or, some blockbuster films aren't being made. Why should we care about this in New Zealand?
On a work level, we should care because a lot of the foreign production that comes here is Hollywood based, and I think all our ideas are becoming more middle of the road. I don't think AI is a groundbreaking intellect. I think it's a groundbreaking technology, but I don't think it does not think outside the box. I had a document that needed to be shrunk, and it was 12 pages and it needed to be 2 paragraphs, and I couldn't do it. So I asked ChatGPT to do it, and it came up with something pretty good. And I had an interaction with it that was quite friendly, as if it was a person. And I said, listen, that's very good. Nice work. Could you put back some of the emotion? Where did I put it? I saved the letter because it was so good. This is AI writing me. It says, thank you for the encouragement. I will continue to do my best to provide helpful responses. As an AI language model, my primary goal is to assist and provide information to the best of my abilities. I may not have emotions in the traditional sense, but I'm programmed to understand and respond appropriately to the emotions expressed by humans. I'm always learning and improving, so I appreciate feedback and suggestions on how to better serve your needs. Whether you need assistance with a specific task, have a question about a topic, or just want to chat, I'm here to help you in any way I can. So please, don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime you need assistance or support. I am here for you.
That's a little bit creepy, I reckon.
It is totally creepy.
That's it for today. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. The Detail is supported by the Public Interest Journalism Fund. Today's episode was engineered by Jeremy Ansell. Our producers are Sarah Robson and Bonnie Harrison. And thanks to Tom Burston and Philippa Mossman. Ka kite anō.